And I must confess that AIPAC has been successful. Last year, they defeated 2 members of the U.S. House who opposed providing military aid to Netanyahu's extremist government. Now, given all of that, I would hope that Democrats and Republicans who understand that they were elected to protect the interests of their constituents, not billionaire campaign contributors, would support the ending of Citizens United and would move us toward public funding of elections so billionaires could not continue to control the political and legislative process. Further, I would hope that both parties would move to end super PAC funding in their primaries. Keep the super PAC money, Musk money, AIPAC money out of the Democratic and Republican primaries. I would hope that that would be the case.
All right, enough of Feel the Burn. Hey, everybody. Yeah, I don't know about Dapper. I showed up. The guy said, you sure you don't want to go get a haircut? Anyway, I'm going to come on. I don't know what happened all day, but I saw that GBUX traded very nicely. Let me see if I'm still signed in. It's trading at 808, 807. And if I'm correct, the volume is 66,000, which is pretty good. And so maybe, just maybe, GBUX will, this price action, remember, supposedly there were 1 or 2 shorts out of Miami that got caught in this. And it ran up to 8 and then to 10 roughly. And then they drove it back down at the end of February. Now they're back up to 8. And to the extent that they were shorting, they're in more trouble than they were the first time. If they had friends shorting, well, those friends are showing up on their doorstep this weekend saying, hey, pal, you told us you'd cover us. Or the whole system is corrupt and Goldman Sachs is bailing them out, or Stevie Cohen's bailing them out. I don't know if GBUX is on the NASDAQ. Let me see. It's on the over-the-counter exchange, so it's Charlie Cromwell. Chuck E. Cheese Cromwell is the one that's at fault here. They don't care. But anyway, with this price action at $8, remember they drove it down to 2, and that probably calmed the prime broker, the risk takers. But even if you're in a den of thieves, the guy lending the money is going to say, hey, pal, I can't give you any more credit. You got a problem. Why don't you go to see a psychiatrist? But give me my money. So that might happen Monday. I don't know. So I'm or Tuesday. I'm trying to call a squeeze. Who the hell knows if and when a squeeze happens? But it's as good a setup as ever. And remember, Ham is the guy that recommended it to us under 80 cents. And here it is $8. That's 10x. But 10x hurts the shorts. I think Finger's not going to do anything more this week. Oh, I don't have a hot date. All my hot dates married somebody else. All right, so that's not that many people here. That's all right. So let's I got bitten. Let's see what some of the other stocks closed. Finger was up. It was up 3 cents, almost 4 cents, $1.45 basically. So to me, Finger has tested support. It doesn't mean it'll turn around right here, but it's tested support. It's closed above $1.41. So it's good. I think that's good for Finger. Nixie is $1.70. Logic's an effing disaster. Just an effing disaster. Let's see what Collective Audience is doing. Oh, you don't know what you're talking about. There's systems in place. Yeah, system this. There's no bid or ask on Collective Audience either. So Aubrey Advisors, Chatron, and Polar, I think, stole at least 150, if not 250 million out of the market. And they're on the board of Collective Audience. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Let's see where the market's closed. Wow, the Dow was down 2,200. So the Dow's down more in a day than it's been down all year. So we're down over 10%, I guess, on the Dow for the year. That's still just a correction. NASDAQ the same, S&P the same. So somebody asked me, what would you do now? And I said, buy. I'm probably early, but I would buy. The highest volume session in the history of the U.S. stock market as measured by total shares traded. Of course, nobody in the history has high frequency trading by computer. So Griffin can make all his money. All right, so it is possible I'm wrong, but right now what's happening in the market is bad news is bad news. And I think it's going to shift to where bad news is good news. What does that mean? I think it means that they'll expect the Federal Reserve to lower interest rates and institute QE. All right, so here it was. This was a shite show. This was the worst week for world stocks since March 2020, the lockdown. This was the worst week for U.S. stocks since the March 2020 COVID lockdown. Oops, I said that word. Oops, I did it again. NASDAQ joined the Russell in bear market territory, down 20% from their highs. The Dow fell a record 2,200 points today. The MAGA 7 stocks lost 1.4 trillion in market cap this week, the most ever. Today was the highest volume session in the history of the U.S. stock market as measured by total shares traded across exchanges. The volatility index saw its biggest weekly jump since the lockdown. This was the worst week for U.S. credit markets since the lockdown. In FX markets, the dollar rebounded, but today saw the Aussie dollar collapse the most that it has collapsed since 2008. When Folks was president. Crude prices crashed 11%, the worst week since March 2023. Gold prices saw only the second down week of the year. Today was the worst day since November 2024. Copper prices crashed today by the most since Lehman Brothers, 2008. Bitcoin managed small gains. The last time the S&P 500 fell this much, this quickly, the Fed stepped in with a huge rescue package. So in March of 2020, the drop was 14%. 2 days later, the Fed announced multi-trillion bailouts, QE, repos, junk bond ETFs. And that's what I think you're going to find out. They're going to expand that Fed balance sheet to 50 trillion in a heartbeat. The Dow was the least ugly horse in the glue factory, but was still monkey hammered, down almost 8% this week. Small caps and big tech were decimated. Technically decimated is only down 10%. Decimated is something to do with the Roman troops. When they decimate them, they took 10% out and strung them up. So big tech and small cap were demolished. The Russell 2000 and NASDAQ are now in bear markets. MAGA 7 stocks lost 1.4 trillion. The biggest weekly loss ever. And they are down 4.5 trillion in market cap, 4.5 trillion in market cap from their highs. I wonder if it was smart to get out of NVIDIA with a little bit and buy some Pentium inside. Intel. The S&P 500 has lost 5.4 trillion in the last 2 days. AI and related stocks were smashed lower. Cyclicals suffered their worst weekly relative performance since August. All sectors were red on the week, led by energy and technology. Staples and utilities were the least hard hit, but they still suffered. The VIX exploded higher. Bond volatility also surged. Credit spreads finally snapped wider. Treasury yields plunged. The 10-year broke back below 4%. 30-year broke back below the Fed funds rate, and the 2-year yield is now at its lowest since October. The market is also pricing the possibility of an emergency intermeeting rate cut. Gold ended the week lower, thanks to getting clubbed like a baby seal today. Crude oil prices plunged from 5-week highs to 4-year lows. Copper crashed from record highs to 2-month lows. Bitcoin ended the week on unch. Here's some positives. After 2 big down days, and virtually anyone in finance blasting the tariff approach, the administration could use some wins. Expect the phones to be worked all weekend. They could redo some of the tariffs. The negatives, more countries join in retaliation on tariffs. Countries start bypassing the United States. 401k holders start to sell. Now, he's far less bearish, as the positive seems as likely than the negatives. He thinks we haven't seen the lows. I bet we have seen the lows. By Tuesday morning, we'll see the lows. If you want to take advantage of this, put some buy orders in underneath the market on things you want to buy. Pick whatever price you want, and maybe it opens down on Monday, and you get your order off. But I think well, we'll see. It's stupid to predict. Hey, Red Pepperoni, you haven't lost a dime in the market if you haven't sold. It's true. There'll come a time when you should sell. Last time I got worked up on a pullback like this in 2020, I still feel guilty about it. I was talking to a friend of mine, and she sold some of her assets, and then it turned around, and we've been on a bull run. I think this time, this is my call. I could be wrong. I think this time we're going to do that again. Only this time, the run up, instead of taking 3 or 4 years, could take 2 months, 3 months. Well, you might get a chance to sell it, because the news I heard the color I heard is that this group is good and they have a lot of acquisitions ready to go. They're going to get it off the expert market. I'll believe it. I'm tired of believing bullshit excuses. I mean, why believe anything now? But anyway, you might make money on that trade. So I didn't help you picking up the kids. I did get a silver email. I don't know how to even use LinkedIn. There was a link to a YouTube video. That's the only silver email I remember. I'll look for more. Oh, sorry. Let's see what else. All right. Let's see, where else can I get some news? I'll see if I can find your emails now, because maybe I can find Alistair McLeod's update. Yeah, of course, doesn't work. Nothing ever works. Nothing really matters to me. Here, maybe there. Mama, I just killed a man, put a gun up to his head, pulled the trigger, now he's dead. And mama, ooh. And mama, China retaliates. Trump digs in. Markets melt down. Trump tariffs spark worst weekly meltdown since 2020. So that gentleman who I said he was wrong, I guess he's right. The Yahoo Finance says the reason the market's down is because of Trump tariffs. Economists cited by the White House to justify its tariffs aren't thrilled. Two top AI stocks down 28%. Mama. All right, let me see where there's other news for you. And then we can talk about your questions. Mama. All right, Laura Loomer, whoever that is. All right, let's see if you have any questions. Put a limit order in to buy finger 135, got another 100. That's good. That's the way to do it. Buy under the market. It's good. Yeah, I watched one of them. I'll watch the other ones. I just had some things going on. I couldn't sit. But I'll watch them. Finger motion up 3 cents, 144. Very impressive. Very impressive. Just trying to think where I can get you some more information. I just turned on as soon as I got home. Eric Adams leaves the Democratic Party. Wow. That's pretty big stuff. Mr. Big Stuff. Oh, Lord. More war in Ukraine. I'm going to I thought he was going to be able to end. I thought he was going to be able to end the Ukrainian war. So Martin Armstrong says, Trump's tariffs are winning. I have said on various podcasts that a 10% tariff is really a tariff. Beyond that, it is political to force free trade. Most countries are dropping tariffs on US goods, creating what Trump actually was trying to create, free trade. The belligerent one, of course, is France. Macron has a Napoleon complex, which is why he has been pushing for war, offering nukes to Germany and trying to supplant the United States as the savior of Europe, being the third largest nuclear power. Trump said the tariffs give us great power to negotiate. They always have. I have received many inquiries about the U.S. reciprocal tariffs. The justification for these tariffs can be found in President Trump's executive order, which may be found here. I'm not an expert in tariff law. Nonetheless, part of the executive order are open to interpretation by experts, and the end result remains fluid. Therefore, it's important to consult with a customs broker. Macron is belligerent, and like Carney in Canada and the Democrats in the United States, whatever Trump does, they must do the opposite. Macron, according to sources, is urging full retaliation against the Trump, that the EU should block all US goods and push for capital controls to prevent money flowing into the United States. He already uses non-tariffs pretending to be a quality control. In order to block some products. However, Macron is also pushing for war with Russia, offering Germany nukes to replace the US. He thinks war will elevate France to the leadership of Europe because of its nukes. Macron has always had a problem with sparkling wines. There are those of you who poo-poo Australian table wines. He's always had a problem with sparkling wines in California being labeled champagne. The French reinterpreted the label champagne to be the origin rather than how the grape was produced. Anyway, I don't want to read anymore. It's boring. I put an order in to buy 500 finger at 134. Only 184 got filled, but at least you got that much filled, right? At least you got that much. That's great. Great price. Yeah, silver won't stay down, but I really hope silver is down when I get some liquidity. Let me look at something. So the $2 calls for April on Finger have a 5-cent bid and a 10-cent ask. You know, I don't own Finger right now, but if I were able to buy it right here, I'd sell those calls at 5 cents, 7 cents. If you bought, I mean, 100 calls, 100 shares, what'd you buy? 100 shares. you sell one call at $2, at 5 cents, that's not very much money. But if you did it across 10,000 shares or 5,000 shares, my guess those calls are going to expire worthless. But that's the risk. That's the risk. If the stock squeezes, you only get $2.05 on the sale. But let's see what happens. Because the premium's there, and it's something you can do with GME if you have it, just sell the short month calls if there's premium. You have to be willing to lose the stock or spend the money to buy the calls back if the stock goes up and sell later calls, higher calls. I didn't eat today, so I'm running out of energy. But Finger looks good right now. NIX is up 171. Let's see if NIX had news. I think they did yesterday. It's good. It's very slow. Anyway, I'm going to skip that. It's taking too long. It's too much information on tariffs. Just looking for news. I'll try to sign in. There. Yep. Let's see, do it that way. Okay. It's taking a while, sorry. All right, just do something. All right, okay. John sent me, is silver doomed? Biggest drop in 14 years. I'm afraid to watch that, John, live because I think I'll get a, whatever you call it, a warning. I'm seeing if there's an article to read for you. He says the market's in a bear market. He could be right. He could be right, but I Up. All right, let's see what he says here. So I have to subscribe to him? I thought I already did. It's all confusing. Seymour Hirsch. Oh, Lordy. You got to sign in for him too. I just hate getting monthly debits. Everything's, you got to upgrade to paid. I'm not going to sign up. All right, I'll go somewhere else. Let's go to today's oil prices are not survivable for U.S. producers. Kazakhstan announces major rare earths discovery. U.S. natural gas prices dropped 6%. Markets are falling out of bed. Is it time to buy yet? An oil price crash for the history books. This week saw oil prices tank more than 10% as President Trump's tariffs went into effect. A single day drop of more than 7% in global oil prices is rare but not unheard of. It usually signals something dramatic: war, pandemics, cartel infighting, or a trade war. Well, got to sign up for that. Gold prices are down, as you know, and silver's down 228. Love it. Love it. Wish I had money. Wish I had money. Major banks of countries, gold. I leave it as a headline next week. Major banks of countries, FTD gold, failed to deliver gold. Yeah, the credit bubble is imploding, and that's why I think the Fed is going to come and over the weekend. I expect something to be announced Sunday night. I think they'll bail out a hedge fund. They'll start buying everything they can. Oh, that's good. One video was talking. So I have to figure out how to listen to it, present it to everybody. I'm so afraid, like I used to do. I'd play a video. I'm afraid to do it. I bought an ounce of silver for $16. Is that good? Of course, that's good. So you should buy all you can of silver. Buy all you can of silver. I wish I were still subscribed to this guy's service. Let's see if he has something for free. It's a pretty expensive service. It's coming up. All right, let's see. News. In the Jerusalem Post, let me see if I can read the whole article. I guess I can. David Morgan writes in the Jerusalem Post, this was last year, September of last year. Silver is about to be the biggest breakout story in history. Silver's potential for growth is fueled by technical factors, economic uncertainties, and historical precedents. The technical analysis suggests a bullish outlook for both gold and silver. He gave an interview to Money Sense. David Morgan, a renowned expert in the precious metals field, shared his bullish outlook on silver with its potential to reach $40 by the end of the year. Morgan's insights offer valuable guidance for investors navigating uncertain economic times. David Morgan, known for his insightful Morgan Report, I used to subscribe to it, brings decades of experience to the table. Yeah, blah, blah. Key takeaways. Morgan believes that silver is poised for a significant price increase, potentially reaching $40 by the end of the year. Now, remember, just because it didn't happen doesn't mean his call is incorrect. It's just taking longer. The technical analysis suggests bullish outlook for gold and silver. Morgan points to the precedence of silver staying above $30 as a positive sign. All right, that wasn't very interesting. And some of his interviews aren't that interesting. So let's try, where can I get something for you on this move? This move, it has to be somebody that writes something, not a video. Not a video. Wow. Let's see what this article's about. The United States could lose its gold market overnight. Well, it's about if he puts a tariff on gold. He didn't, so let's ignore that one. China trumps silver. All right, I like that. This is an interview which is put out by Live from the Vault, so I can't play it. But Andrew McGuire discusses how China's strong physical silver buying is challenging the paper market for silver, with the liquidity providers exploiting the widening spread to push the market towards physical settlement. As Chinese and Indian demand intensifies, it unfolds a structural shift in the silver market, exposing the fragility of a paper-based pricing, and it sets the stage for a breakout as silver moves further away from futures pricing. That's all I can tell you about that one. Ross Norman, the gold-silver ratio hits 100 to 1. If you can tell much about a person from how they behave under adversity, then so it is for the metals markets. When things are going swimmingly, We can all look the part, but throw in a tariff-fueled panic and things can change quite quickly. It is during price corrections, such as the current one, where markets show their true character. Seen through the silver lens, we sensed silver was largely coming along for the ride, but was not terribly enthusiastic. The merest whiff of a correction, and silver was off and over the hill. Despite some compelling fundamentals, the support base for silver is quite thin. The speculators ran for the exits in an undignified and disorderly rush. The gauge to measure the relative price of gold to silver today nudged to 100 to 1. That's the highest ratio in 5 years. I wish I had money. I would buy silver. To show just how out of line things are for silver, consider that silver is 14 times as abundant as gold, 14 times, and the true ratio should be, therefore, 14 to 1, not 100 to 1. This was the price differential in Roman times between the respective gold and silver coins. The odd thing is silver has a good story. 5 consecutive years of supply deficits for silver. 5 consecutive years. A tight market with lease rates nudging 6%. I guess that's tight. And significant outflows of silver to New York with no central banks to help out if things get extreme. Unfounded fears that silver would be subject to tariffs also failed to make a discernible impact. Speculative positioning on COMEX looks encouraging at a 5-year high and is likely this is where we saw the sell-off from this 5-year high. They always meet resistance and pull back. I don't mind saying I am long silver in my pension, and that position currently has a large question mark over it. It's also a truism to say you can tell something about a person from the company they keeps. Well, it's starting to look like gold is disassociating itself from silver. In a normal sharp sell-off, one might expect or hope for a 50% bounce between highs and lows. And we got that, or nearly enough. We were at a high of $3,164 an ounce to a low of $3,058, and now we should go to 3,111. What's he saying? Oh, a 50% bounce, not a change in price, just a bounce, and that's what you're getting in gold. It does beg the question, why is gold on a different path than silver? This is a very narrow central bank market right now, which gives us the opportunity to get in. My reading, all good for gold. He thinks silver has to have a hard think. I love it. We're at 100 to 1 on the gold silver ratio. Man, it's highly pounceable. So the gentleman earlier, I said he was wrong. He was right. The Trump administration just kicked stocks off a ledge. So other people agree with him. So I was wrong. Um, all right, I've run out of things I can find in the news. So let's see what you guys are saying. So there's a local coin store who will test your gold, your silver and gold for free. LCS, local coin stores. You might be super cool, but nobody is selling silver for half price. Hmm? Hmm? I'm confused. Bailout. Bailout. I think the Fed is going to bail out hedge funds. Bail out, not buy out, bail out. We'll find out, but I think you're going to see stress in one or two hedge funds. They're no smarter than you are, and they leverage up. So let me see. Can you spend half an ounce of silver for groceries or half an ounce of gold? Well, that answers itself right now. I would buy, if you're looking for point nine, the 4 9s, you have to buy Canadian, some Australian. I think the Austrian harmonic is 9999. Are you out of your mind? But US silver is 3 9s. So if you want the 4 9s, Canada does it. But I don't think it really changes the ratios. And in a panic, you're not going to get the extra benefit, I don't think. But anyway, Canada's where you get that. Ace is saying a crash is coming and Trump is wanting it sooner rather than later so he can blame Biden. Well, maybe. I don't I don't see it. I think this is it. Um, like I say, maybe Monday or Tuesday morning, if you were really going to have a crash, put some orders in under the market, and maybe Tuesday morning, Monday morning, you'll be able to buy stocks like you couldn't believe for prices you couldn't believe. But I think everything is going to be resolved by QE, and I think it'll come next week. They'll have emergency meetings over the weekend. That's what I think. Well, Pete the Greek probably paid $16 2 years ago. We all could have. We all could have. As the stock market continues plummeting over tariffs, Trump spends the day at his golf course. Where did Biden spend his days? Desperate in Deutschland. Germany has the second largest gold reserves in the world, on paper at least. This is what Adam Sharp said. The country's official holdings clock in at 3,352 tons. I think Russia has more, China has more. Of course, we might have less. Behind only the United States at 8,133 tons. About 37% of Germany's gold, 1,236 tons, is held by the New York Federal Reserve. The gold was moved to the United States for safekeeping in the aftermath of WW2, when the threat of Soviet tanks charging through the Fulda Gap loomed large. Back in 2013, German politicians first raised a stink about bringing their gold back home. By 2017, a decent chunk of the nation's gold had been returned to Germany's central bank, mostly from France and England. Only about 300 tons of that came from the New York Fed. What's happening in New York is they're leasing the gold out, and probably 2, 3, 4 people own the same gold. So they can't ship it until the leases are up. Anyway, only about 300 tons of what was returned to Germany came from the New York Fed, which brings us to today, when more than a third of German gold still sits in the New York Fed vaults in Manhattan. Today, German conservatives are once again lobbying to at least be able to inspect their reserves, which they haven't been able to do. Here's a quote from Michael Jager of the European Taxpayers Association. Quote, the Bundesbank and the German government must demonstrate foresight in this phase of global power shifts and immediately retrieve German gold from the United States, especially at a time when Berlin and Brussels are discussing immense new debt. We need immediate access to all gold reserves in an emergency. Bring our gold back from the USA immediately. Unsurprisingly, Trump's desire to audit Fort Knox gold reserves has not inspired confidence in foreign governments who store their gold in the United States. I suspect fears driving Germany's desire to repatriate its gold largely stem from the same story we've been covering throughout the year, the gold leasing conspiracy. For decades, rumors have swirled that central banks lease out gold reserves, including those of foreign governments. The gold could hypothetically then be sold on the open market. In theory, this would contribute to keeping a cap on the price of gold while propping up fiat money. For now, the leasing conspiracy is largely hypothetical, really. The world of gold reserves is incredibly secretive and opaque, both, which of course only adds to the intrigue. But it's indisputable that something has changed over the past decade. Governments are no longer as trusting. This is yet another signal that we are nearing the end of this period of fiat currency dominance. And then, of course, we've got to go to war. When they start to lose, they go to war. Gold has begun to make its inevitable return to the international monetary system. Gold as the canary. It is no coincidence that this scramble for physical gold is happening as the gold debt spiral reaches an inflection point. Governments around the world, particularly here in the United States, are approaching what some call the debt event horizon. How's that go? Something about on my way to my horizon. Some soft country song about on the way to my horizon, something like that. Anyway, governments around the world are approaching what is called the debt event horizon. This is the point where interest costs on debt become a substantial part of the overall government spending, and then government spending spirals out of control. And debt creation. In 2024, the United States government spent approximately $1.1 trillion paying the interest on its debt. Total tax receipts for the year were $4.9 trillion. So nearly a quarter of tax money was spent paying interest. Debt and deficit will compound rapidly from here. Even if Doge is successful in slashing government spending, it will only delay the inevitable. This is why gold is constantly reaching new all-time highs. It is why governments around the world, including the United States, are scrambling to get their hands on physical gold. The gold bull cycle has just begun. I believe we are still early in this bull market. The global monetary system is ill, and the ultimate remedy is a return to hard money. That means a lot more inflation and much higher precious metals prices. In other words, gold and silver are just getting the party started. And that's the article I was looking for earlier. I couldn't find it. What Alistair MacLeod is saying, and I've been saying it differently, kind of quoting Gregory Mannarino, but it's all, everybody, when you think about it, you end up with the same thoughts. We have to be our own central banks. And what does that mean? Get out of credit. Get out of credit. And so if you go to a Wall Street wealth advisor, you'll lose all your wealth probably in this next cycle. I don't know how long the cycle is, 5 years, 20 years, I don't know, but it could be a lot sooner. But they'll tell you to diversify, keep 0.5% in gold. They don't get paid on gold. They will. Wall Street will create products so their system can get paid on gold. But let's get in there before that happens. But if you put 5% of your money in gold or 10% or in silver and put the rest in bonds and, I don't know, CDs and Costco and Nvidia and ETFs, you're still in credit. This is the facts. You're still counting on somebody else to pay you back. The only thing that protects you from what's coming is gold and silver. I think oil and gas, probably clean water, probably land, probably your own house, things like that. Real stuff. The real stuff protects you. What's valuable today to you will be valuable to everyone after there's a new financial system. What won't survive is the purchasing power of the US dollar. That won't survive. You got it today for 16 smackers? Wow, they must have really panicked. So what you did is you put your order in under the market. They must have really panicked. That's brilliant on your part. Brilliant. Brilliant. Can I promote DBMM? No, I won't promote DBMM. I think it might work, but that, just like Magoo did, but we could also be waiting forever for DBMM to go up. It's well and truly seller boxed. There's no reason to buy that. There's no reason to buy that stock. If you're looking for a squeeze, which nobody knows if they happen, I think GBUX, which is Ham's idea, is the most immediate right now. I think NIXI, NIXX, is also very close to being immediate. Are they risky? Yeah. Are they NIXI? Yeah. Do they both end in X on the symbol? Yeah. And then I think RailF. But if you want to experience a squeeze unlike anything you've ever seen in your life, buy silver. You're going to have to wait. If you're somebody that needs to do something every day, silver is not for you. What's the deal with GBUX? I don't know what's going on with it. The price it doesn't trade after market, as far as I know. So it closed at 807, 67,000 shares. I mean, you know the story of GBUX. It's Ham's story. He's told it to you. Money out of Dubai. It looks like it's definitive, but I think, the skeptical part of me, you want to wait and see that. It was just announced $212,000 for 30% of the company coming from shareholders, not newly issued shares. They're putting it in some sort of strategy of investing, and the float reportedly is just over 1 million shares. The short position reportedly is just over 2 million shares. The stock trades by appointment, but prior to this, there's no big short position except for one or two idiots out of Florida, apparently. And as the stock went to 10, pulled back to 8, went to 8, then it went to 10, pulled back to 8. They drove it down to around whatever it was, $2 or $3 in February, at the end of February. And now the stock is back at 8. So it's quite likely that the shorts are in a lot of trouble. And could we see buy-ins? Maybe. The risk with GBUX to me is that the market cap of the company is, I mean, one of the risks. There's always risks. The market cap is almost it's 2/3 of $1 billion. That's pretty big already. But if it's going to squeeze, the price is going to separate from the fundamentals. That's what's going on with GBUX. How much lower do we have to go until margin calls hit in the market? I don't think anybody's on margin. You're not on margin. I don't think I don't think most of the market is on margin. However, that's why I think there will be a bailout of hedge funds. I think that there's some funds that will be highly leveraged, like the LTCM did. And that's why I think over the weekend, you're going to see emergency meetings to bail out too big to fail hedge funds. But anyway, I would imagine, I mean, what you're suggesting, and you might be right, is that there'll be sellouts to meet margin calls, and there'll be a panic in the markets. That's going to come at some point. So if you think that's coming next week, do like with the silver, put orders in under the market. You might be surprised what you can buy. But my opinion is they're going to come rescue. You know, I've never seen a market crash, and this could be the time, but I've never seen a market crash when everybody's talking about the market crashing. We'll see what happens. If the Fed doesn't do anything next week, I guess the question will be, what would make the stock market go up? I think the Fed will be buying, even if they don't announce it. I think the Fed, the plunge protection team, will be buying everything they can. I really think the Federal Reserve balance sheet is going to expand to unheard of levels. Hey, PS 71. Oh, that was a joke. Yeah. Yeah, silver is risky to store. So, so's gold. So's gold. It's just gold doesn't weigh as much. So it sounds like silver is not for you. You can buy PSLV. You can wait. I'll try to have some miners that you can buy. But right now, to me, the time in the cycle right now is to buy silver. But you don't have to. You're worried about storage, don't buy it. But when it goes to 120, I think you're going to wish you had bought it. It's my opinion. I'm getting 6 o'clock, so I don't know that I'll go much longer because it's your Friday night, and I ain't got nobody. I got some money because I just got paid. I'm gonna It's another Saturday night and I ain't got nobody. Unbelievable. Obama judge orders the return of an MS-13 gang member to the United States from El Salvador. Unbelievable. The DNC is establishing the People's Cabinet to sabotage Trump's agenda. Trump fires back after China hits panic button. China played it all wrong, he says. China has announced a 34% retaliatory tariff on all goods imported from the United States. This comes as retaliation to Trump's decisive action earlier this week, when the administration rightfully imposed reciprocal duties on China. So Trump says on Truth Social, China played it wrong. They panicked. The one thing they cannot afford to do. Trump is not backing down. We'll see what happens. Obama judge orders FEMA to disperse millions of dollars in grants to the blue states. All right, our country is becoming unreliable. AOC leads Schumer by double digits in the New York Senate primary shutdown. I tell you, she is talented. There is nobody better at getting cameras other than Trump than AOC. She is amazingly talented at getting the cameras. I put GBUX on Monday at Monday at 88. All right, 88 sounds good. 88 sounds good to me. Hey, Leanna, sorry, my eyesight. Smile for a while, and let's be jolly. Life shouldn't be so melancholy. Come along. Smile for a while and let's be jolly. Life shouldn't be so melancholy. Come along and dance while we can. I beg your pardon. I never promised you a rose garden along with the sunshine. There's gotta be a little rain sometime. Mm. Physical silver and gold are best, of course. Yeah, safe's too obvious. There, I don't know what you do. You don't tell anybody. You can put it in the back of your closet and hope no one sees it. You can bury it and cover the hole with concrete. Uh, yeah, it's tough. And once you take, if you start, let's say the economy goes to hell and you start living large because you're selling your gold and silver at a huge profit, they're going to come steal it from you. So it's really tricky. It's all tricky. Um, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't try. I egg your pardon. I egg your pardon. You guys, why do you worry that they beat it down from 9? They didn't beat it down. They're in trouble, my opinion. I think it's much more important that you notice they closed at 8. Last time it was at 8, it ran to 10, and they got it down right away. And they just trended it down all the way to 3 or 4 or even under 3. I wouldn't focus on the 9. I'd focus on the fact that it closed above 8. There's resistance in here somewhere. I couldn't read exactly where it is on my little chart, but it's somewhere around 820 to 850, maybe 9. Once it breaks through 9, call it. Once it breaks through 10, I think you're going to be very happy you own GBUX. I think. Vietnam wants to cut their tariffs down to 0. So the Vietnam ETF is probably going to go up. I will sing you tune and promise you the moon. It's not your bad. You're all right. You're all right. It's I can't show you your question there. Um, no, it's a win. They trap. That's what it looks like. We'll find out. Could be wrong. We'll find out. I think it's the best odds of a squeeze. Looks like GBUX right now. I don't know what else to talk about. I'll find something else. To Lanky. If I listen long enough to you, I'd find a way to believe that it's all that you cry, and a reason to believe, someone like you makes it about myself. I don't know when that'll be. Um, but that'll be my fun. All right. I can't think of anything else to tell y'all except GBUX looks good for Monday, I think, Monday or Tuesday. Finger had a strong day today. Um, and all credit goes to him. In the markets, I think, you know, my guess is today was the low, but it could be Monday or Tuesday. And I wish I knew how to buy calls on the S&P or the Russell or the Nasdaq or the Dow. I don't know how. Maybe I can Google it over the weekend. But I think you're going to see the biggest snapback rally in the markets you've ever seen, and we're going to go to all-time highs. It's risky to play that side of it, but everything looks dark now. Everything looks terrible. Whoa, we're going down. It's going to crash. That's usually when it's over with. What could make the crash come? Like you guys said, margin calls, a misstep could do it. I don't know what war does. I don't know if Trump is, bomb, 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 like McCain said, bomb, 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 Iran. What a jerk. Um, I don't know what happens if we bomb Iran. I don't know what happens if Germany and France invade Russia or help Ukraine invade, launch missiles in Russia so that Russia attacks NATO and NATO declares war against Russia. And then we're sucked into war with the world's largest world's largest nuclear armed superpower. I don't know, but for the time being, I'll stick by my guns. I think you've seen the lows in the markets, in the indices. I think you're going to see a snapback that'll rip the face off of most people. I don't know if it starts Monday, but I think it'll start soon. I think Railtown, it's got to be close. Whatever they're going to announce after their 6 week or 7 week old PR, they got to follow along on it soon. I don't see any. I don't see any more news. So I guess it'll be. Who's Andrew Tate? Andrew Tate's ex-girlfriend reveals his evil. Why was she involved with him? for the camera. Eh, it's always evil afterwards, but not beforehand. I don't know. I don't know what's going on. I don't know who Lana Del Rey is, but these are the headlines in the Daily Hate. Kevin Costner has a dad bod. NFL stars dies at age 54 after a 2-year battle of cancer. Whenever I hear those things, so young, 2 years, I can't finish my thought. Yeah, okay. Here's the pyramids. New Egyptian Giza pyramid bombshell reshapes history. I wanted to talk about the pyramids the other night. I'm not going to do it now, but what really interests me is the pyramids are much older than they say, and they're not tombs. I think they survived the flood, and maybe there's a city under there. I don't know, but what fascinates me is, what if they're a source of energy? It would be great if we could figure that out, because then we would have perhaps unlimited energy that we could use instead of coal and oil. But if it is an underground city, I wonder if that means there was a time in our history where the atmosphere, we couldn't live above ground because the winds were so strong. I don't know. But I'm too tired to talk about the pyramids. All right, Steve bought something. That's good. The energy story is all made up bullshit. Bullshit. Well, you might be right. And again, you might be wrong. That's the problem. Each of us might be right, each of us might be wrong, but we fight so hard because we think we're right. Let me see if I have something here to show you. I might not. Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. Watch this, if you can. Oh, gosh, please work. Please work. I don't want 11. Oh, I see. Oh, I didn't want all those. I can't stand it. I can't stand it. The stars in the sky to you are nothing but a mirror. And the sky. See, this is the idea, is that comets hit 12,000 years ago, 11,000 something. And that's what caused because all right, so let me come back here, take your comment down, go back here. So the Sphinx is over 11,500 years old. And if you look at this image of the Sphinx, it's one of the geologists looked at that and said that's water erosion, water, so that it has to be older than 4,500 years. And of course, Napoleon and his troops shot the nose off, jerks. Water erosion canal, see them on the Sphinx? See them on the Sphinx? Let's see what this one is. This is Carlson. I want to read that book, Hamlet's Mill. Sorry. I'm sure you know Zechariah Sitchin and Eric von Duncan. Yep, I do. I haven't met them, but I've read a couple of Zechariah Sitchin's books, and I've listened to a lot of his lectures, and I read Eric von Däniken's books, Chariot of the Gods, way back when. He was a waiter, I think, in a Swiss resort, and he wrote that book, and it became a worldwide bestseller, and I was one of the ones that read it way back when. He's a God-fearing guy, but I don't think he's a Bible thumper or anything. He's a Catholic, but he doesn't feel like his view of aliens having come to the earth interferes with his belief in God. All of these men, they're mostly men. I can't remember a woman that I've read in it. That might be my bias, but I don't remember a woman that's written a book or lectured on it. The premise of all these guys is that the myths, the Greek gods, the Russian god, the Roman gods, the stories even of the Bible and the Torah might not be myths. They might be truths. And they're obviously not exactly true, but that it might be that it's based on something that occurred in the Indigada Davida. And I think that was in the Garden of Eden. But anyway, that book of the Indian book has all these stories of wars in the sky. It's interesting stuff. I don't find it controversial. I think it's far more likely. In the terms of the Egyptian studies, it makes no sense. In all the tombs, there's the hieroglyphs, however you say it, and pictures and all that. When you go into the pyramids, which I had a chance to do, but I didn't want to do it. Now I wish I had, but they don't have that. It's more likely the pyramids are either for power generation, or the one thing I think about, because the ancient megaliths, there's always these structures that are tuned to the stars, and the pyramid was too. You could look through these little holes. It might be a way of achieving total consciousness. At least I've got that going for me. And communicating across the universe. Anyway, I don't know. I wonder sometimes if that's what it was for, to get in there and it's so quiet and somehow you could communicate. But that's wacko. I think more likely the pyramids were a way of tapping into the Earth's magnet and generating electricity, which maybe, the flying carpets, while we're turning old stories into truth, maybe flying carpets might have just been cars that flew based on the pyramids having access to power. I don't know. I just think it'd be fun to study. They were hammered when they sang that song? I didn't know that. In the Garden of Eden, baby. Have you ever heard of the mass UFO sighting in 1561? Well, if you look in paintings by the Dutch masters or others, you'll see UFOs in the background. And if you look at the Egyptian paintings, and if you look at other paintings on caves and etc., you can see what looks to be astronauts or aliens. Göbekli Tepe, you can see these drawings that you could interpret, or these carvings that you can interpret that way. So yeah, I think it's a shame that the Spanish, when they went to Mexico, they found essentially history written. They burned it all because there's no other truth than the Catholic Church. It's a real shame. Just like it's a shame the Taliban blew up those statues in Afghanistan. We're very ignorant species. I don't think that God minds us learning what happened before, if something happened before. I don't think he minds. Yeah, I'd have to find some of them, but you see it in the background. Can I call you Uncle Bill? That was my dad. They called him Uncle Bill. I'm funny? I don't know if I'm funny. I'm funny how? No, I'm serious. I'm funny how? I make you laugh. Yeah, it's similar to the orb seen everywhere the last few years because, a couple of things. Sitchin makes this argument. I don't follow it exactly. But, if Planet X or Neribu, the destroyer, it could be a little sun. It could be a little solar system too. But if it takes 3,600 years to make its cycle around our sun, it's getting close now. And he projected at one point that it could come here by 2075. And then he backed off and he said, that's not the important date, because as soon as it gets close, they can start visiting again. That's interesting. But one of the arguments he makes is that these gods like Anu, who was the king, the sun, Enlil, and Enlil, I think, represents the God of the Torah, of the Old Testament, the killing and the smiting and the destruction and the all of that. He did like human beings. Enki might represent more of the tolerance for human beings, because I think he tried to save anyway, if you believe it all. Um, the flood apparently was to wipe us out. But also there's the idea of there were it's in the Bible, the giants on the world, and then there were the gods made love with the hot chicks, the American chick, the human chicks, and then got them pregnant, and they had to kill everything because that screwed up the. I don't know. I'm too tired to make it make sense, but Adam, for example, according to Sitchin, is the Anunnaki, those who from heaven come. It was the Anunnaki word for in our image, Adam. Who knows? Who knows? It is, that part's all controversial. But I find it really interesting, because why do we think that on this earth, which has been around for, you're going to get, I think it's 4.5 billion years, but it might be 5.7. I can't remember. A lot of years. Why do we think that we're the only civilization that was here? I don't think that's likely. The world will get a third temple, and all the religions will worship there in Israel. That the world will get a third temple. Well, Sitchin thinks that much like in World War II, we would fly bombers and land on these islands, and there'd be a native population who had never seen anything off the island before in their life. They'd see these bombers land and then left, and they started worship. They would create images of bombers and they'd start worshiping. It's kind of in a Star Trek show. He thinks that the reason the religions are there is because the temple was where the rockets took off to go to see Anu and the rest. I don't know. I don't know about religions. I don't know what's so great about Israel that all the religions are going to be there. I haven't gone. I've been across the Dead Sea in Jordan, looking across at Israel, but I've never been in Israel. I'd like to go. But I have spent a lot of time in the Middle East, and it is weird if you're so inclined, I guess, or it's just something wrong with me. But when I land there, I really do feel an awareness of the ancient, maybe the presence of God. I don't know. But I think it's ridiculous that Christians in the United States and Netanyahu, Christians in the United States are helping Netanyahu slaughter an entire population so a war can start. So depending on your religion, Jesus can return. Whatever it is in Islam, there's a name for it, can come. And in Israel, the Messiah can come for the first time. I think it's just all the folly of human beings, the cargo culture. Yeah, yeah, okay. They made plans. Yes, exactly. Exactly. Read the book of Enoch. All right. I think it's Enoch that Eric von Däniken, it might be Elijah, but I think it's Enoch that Eric von Däniken pointed out to his teacher. In the Bible, it says, God spoke to him and said, human. And Eric von Däniken said, well, wait a minute. If it's God, how come he doesn't know his name? It's interesting. It's interesting. And then all the noise as they went up, maybe he took them up to the spaceship and the noise was like a helicopter or something. I don't know. I don't want you to think I'm a loony. You mean the flower, Lupin? You are a loony. If you look at how the Pope and the Cardinals dressed, where have things gone wrong? Oh, tell me, Mr. Best. I love that story. I wonder if I can find it on the internet. Let me see. Pete Best story. That's not finding it. All right, let me see if I'll be more specific. Hotel waiter. Maybe this is it. Let me see if I can find it. It's not how I heard it, but. All right, so this is Brian Madley in the Guardian newspaper, written in the year 2000. The vanity of having one's photograph taken with any famous person who happens to be passing has always been abhorrent to me. But I have succumbed on 2 occasions, which is why there are 2 special photographs on my bookcase. In one, I'm with Sir Stanley Matthews, whoever that is, and in the other, it's George Best. And I wanted those photographs not because of their fame, but to remind me of our friendships. So the news that Best had been rushed to the hospital only a week after Sir Stanley's funeral left me praying for his full recovery. It still amazes me that 2 men who possess such identical soccer genius could be so completely different off the field. On the right wing, a great night. On the left, a great night out. I never saw Sir Stanley with an alcoholic drink in his hand, and I seldom saw George without one. My photograph with the mighty Matthews was taken when he lived in Malta and had chauffeured me around the island for 2 days. I want to go to Malta. I don't even know if George can drive, but there is no way I'd get into a car if he were behind the wheel. But although there are many stories told about the effect drink sometimes has on Best, I have only one I've ever seen the lovable side of the man when he's had a few too many. A man who was only too happy to be his own biggest critic. Quote, George Best said, I went to Toronto and I saw a sign saying, drink Canada dry. So that's what I did, unquote. He borrowed that line from Brendan Behan. I love this story. And he still delights in telling the story of the 70s of a night in a hotel room where the room service waiter delivered champagne after George Best had won handsomely in a casino while escorting Marjorie Wallace, the reigning Miss World. Pound notes, currency, dollars, pound notes, and his date, Marjorie Wallace, littered the bed as George prepared to pop the bubbly. The way I heard the story, the waiter came in, knocked on the door, and the Miss World and George were naked, and he was delivering, lobster and caviar and champagne, but there was cocaine apparently. And anyway, so there's money and the naked Miss World littering the bed as George Best prepares to pop the champagne. The waiter shakes his head and says, George, where did it all go wrong? I love that story. Where did it all go wrong? The way I heard what he said is, when did it all start to go wrong, Mr. Best? When did it all start to go wrong? Muslims will destroy their own Doma of the Rock Mosque. Israel will build the third temple finally. Antichrist and anarchy will take it and turn it into one world order church. I don't know. I take just slight issue with how you phrase what you're saying. I'm religious. I haven't been particularly good at my faith. So maybe you're right, maybe you're wrong, but I do believe in God. And so I see that. I'm not sure as I get older that I see that separately as my faith. I don't know. But I think when you say that you're atheist, you're kind of disgusted at whatever you experienced in your religion and playing the organ play everywhere and that deep dive. I just went to this funeral and the pastor, gave a reasonable talk, but it didn't register with me. My friend had written an interesting letter that did, but it was Protestant. It was I don't know what it was, but it sure wasn't Catholic. And so maybe there's some religion in there. But my point is, you're not an atheist. Well, let me say it differently. Religion and atheism are two different things as far as I can tell. A true atheist doesn't believe in God. And that may also be that he doesn't believe in religion. But most atheists that I talk to, their issue is with the religion. And without getting too, because I don't know what I'm talking about. But if evil were to attack good anywhere, and we're all capable, probably, it would be maybe with the human beings that dare to say that they're here to represent the best they can their understanding of what God says. You would think the churches would be under attack. I don't know, but I'm not a proselytizer. So one of my neighbors, she doesn't believe in God, and she's getting older. She smokes heavily. I think she gets a little worried. I told her, I don't know, about 7 years ago. I just told her once. I don't think it registered, but I said, Ann, there's a story, I guess. I think it's in the Old Testament, but it might be the New, about a shipwreck. And the ship is going to its doom, and whoever the sailor is hears the voice, even now you can turn to me. And I think that's maybe the only thing I would offer, is that. And in fact, I think that was the message the other day. Anyway, I'm not telling you not to be atheist or whatever, but even if you get to a point, as she has, I'm not saying you have, but she has this pride that she's been atheist all this long. Human pride doesn't stand up to these greater things that we don't know about. I'm not saying I know. But yeah, I at St. Matthew's, I went once, and actually went in. I usually go when not St. Matthew's, St. Patrick's in New York, St. Patrick's. But man, it was during the, I had went up to meet a client, and I didn't get the, and so when I met at this restaurant, he got really he was shocked that I hadn't done that. Why wouldn't you do that? I couldn't show my card, so they kicked me out. And I couldn't get in anywhere. You couldn't get in the museums, you couldn't get in the hotels. So I had to kill time. And I had to use, I might be mixing two stories, but it doesn't matter. I had to use the restroom, so I went into St. Patrick's. And there was a line, and there was one restroom behind the altar, and there were a lot of people waiting for it. It was a whole. But while I was waiting there, the organ started playing. It was amazing. I loved it. someone started playing the deep vibrating sound. It was great. Um, ah, ah, ah. You know, Christopher Hitchens is the great atheist. I still listen to him all the time. I I love his thinking and reasoning. But you know what? DBMMMMM. What I notice about a lot of atheists, I don't know you yet, but the in the questions of an atheist, oftentimes, and their anger sometimes, is belief, is belief. And I think that was true a little bit of Christopher Hitchens. So today, Friday, April 4th, the fourth week of Lent, without faith, Jesus Christ eludes our grasp. In today's gospel, the crowd only knows Jesus by reputation and some simple facts, but without faith, they fail to know him. We do this too. We can hear that Jesus is merciful and forgiving, but in the hour of trial, when we actually need mercy and forgiveness, if we do not believe, we will dismiss Jesus as insignificant for us. To know him and his significance, we need the Holy Spirit to enlighten us and teach us to believe. In other words, and this is my argument with Christopher Hitchens, you can't prove it. It's faith. It's an oxymoron and I'm not saying anyway, I can tell you some things. I'm not going to bore people with it. But you have to, the whole point is faith. So if you're saying, well, prove it to me. One time I was visiting my father for the summer. I stayed the summer in Moscow, and my little brother, Peter, who's now much bigger than I am, I would carry him around on my shoulders, and I'd spend a lot of time with him. But there was this guy. It was the summer that my dad's secretary's husband, Jay Crawford, was arrested. Jay Crawford worked for International Harvester. And in America, in the United States, I want to say it was Carter administration. They threw out some Soviet spies out of New York. And in retaliation, the KGB came up and stopped the taxi that Jay Crawford was in. And he was wearing jeans and chewing gum. And he gave them his passport, and he didn't have a diplomatic passport, and they just threw it away. They accused him of trading blue jeans, trading chewing gum, all illegal, and they threw him in Lefortovo prison. And my dad ran the commercial office. He was in charge of the United States commercial office for that posting. And I have my own story where I got chased through Moscow by the KGB and drove into the embassy at full speed and got called before. To my memory, I had to show up in person because I remember going up the elevator with my father, and Jack Matlock was the ambassador. Anyway, that's a long story for another time. But why was I talking about that? Oh, when I would go out walking outside, and in Moscow, I don't know if it's still that way, people spent time outside, a lot of time outside, the sun or walking or whatever, much more so than we do. And anyway, this guy Sasha came up to me. He was young. My dad asked me about it later, and he told me Dad was an interesting guy. He would tell me and include me as an adult. I was an adult. I was in college, but he didn't tell me don't do that. But he just let me know. He'd say, um, the embassy thinks that Sasha is KGB. What do you know? What is he saying to you? How's he talking to you? I said, as far as I know, he's just a friend. We went to the zoo. We did, but I believe in retrospect that Sasha was KGB. I was my dad's son, and there were bugs in the offices, probably bugs in the automobiles and everywhere else. But anyway, Sasha, one time I'm sitting there with Peter, I think, or I was alone. Sasha walked up to me and we had this exact same conversation. Sasha says to me in English, "So you believe in God? You believe in God?" I said, "You don't?" And I said, "So why are we here? What's life about?" He said, "No, we live, we die. We came from the soil, we go back to the soil." I said, "Really? That's it?" I said, "Well, I hope that's not true." He said, "Well, if you believe in God, prove it to me. Show me that your God is real. Have him do something. Have him move that tree from there to here." And I guess I was 19, might have been 18, but I think I was 19. I had no idea how to answer this question, but I said, that's not how it works. You can't challenge God. You can't make him, you can't test him to prove that he exists. And so I didn't prove it to Sasha that God exists. I didn't prove it to him. But I didn't try to either. And I'm not going to try to prove it to you because it is an interesting question. Why is God so silent? Why is he so not there? And I don't know the answer. My guess is it's just a whole different we live in this world with these five senses, and I guess it must be some different place. I don't know. Anyway, I could say more, but I won't. I respect that you're atheist. No one knows. But I think if you're looking for proof, it's probably not going to be provided because it is about faith. On the other hand, the first people that met Jesus got to see, didn't they? And we never did get to see. So it is an interesting question. Anyway, let's move on. There's no need for proof if it makes one happy. A good friend of mine really believes Jesus could walk on water. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I hate saying it, but there's a school of thought that Jesus went to the Far East and learned skills of the priests there and was nothing more than a healer from that learning. I don't know. I don't know that you have to believe in all the miracles to believe. I don't know. But if I mean, I have questions about, I mean, little things, DBMM. The idea he's Jesus, maybe it comes from Zeus. Zeus, Jesus, 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 Zeus. The idea that Caesar was the son of God, he was the son of man. Well, that's what they say about Jesus. You know, there's a lot of reasons to doubt, sure. But at some point, you just have to, I guess, make your own decision. And I don't know if you have to do it alone. Maybe you just have to listen. I don't know. I've never doubted. I've never not been a believer. I've been confused about a lot of it, of course, but I've never not been a believer. But I don't know what it means either. So totally useless with anyone else. But luckily, I do think that the important thing is that we all interact with each other. It's hard to accept as real. Is it any more hard to accept as real than what Moses did with the cane and the snakes? Is it any harder to believe than a bush that burns and doesn't disappear? Is it any harder to believe than Muhammad's victory? I'm going to lose the story, but his victory against, I want to say, I won't because it'll get me in trouble, but he was able to win with a small army or a small group of men. I don't know. They're all stories, aren't they? And maybe the reason they're stories is because that's how we remember things. We tend to remember stories. We don't remember, dates just for nothing. We remember, most of us. I don't believe in the IRS, but I still file every year just in case. ISIS has destroyed mosques. Oh, it's terrible. Israel's destroying mosques. I had the privilege of being able to visit the Hagia Sophia, and I don't know if they've finished the reconstruction of it, but we couldn't build that to this day. And apparently, the Emperor Constantine built, if it's true, built that church. We don't have the technology to build it today. So it was Christian, but then it's Muslim, and now it's a museum. And you walk in. I also went over to the mosque, at which it was pretty nice. They let me in. But you look up, and there's the Christian, I guess Greek Orthodox or Russian, I guess it was Roman Catholic, but it looked more Orthodox, Russian or Greek. But anyway, you see the cross and you see that up there. But then over there, you see whatever the Sariah was, I guess you call it, the Arabic words. I thought it was beautiful that the two faiths could be right there. When I was in Dubai with a gentleman who was a true believer, so it was at Easter time, oddly. We went to the Easter Mass at St. Mary's in Dubai. It's very hard to get to. And I had been there before, but not every Sunday while I was there. I always had a reason, I guess. But we took a taxi. You had to take a taxi, and we showed up. And it's a big gymnasium and a lot of outdoor space too. It was overflowing. And what I noticed about the people going to Mass, other than we two Americans, they were all mostly out of Asia, probably the Philippines. They all had dark hair. They're young families and single, but it was packed. It was packed. And there was no place to go in to sit. And even against the wall was crowded. So my friend and I went outside and there were a bunch of, you were supposed to, if that's all you could. And they had the priest on the, a TV. But you could hear, it wasn't like you were totally separate. You could see the movement. And to my memory, we went back in for communion. But what was amazing is this church is right à côté the mosque. And so not in the same yard, but there was a fence, but right next door was the mosque. So you could hear the call to prayer as we were in the Catholic Church. They could hear us. I thought it was great. Why does there have to be? Anyway, I think it's terrible they're destroying all the cultural sites. My dad had a massive stroke. 2 days later, he had surgery. That evening, there was a double rainbow you could see from our front yard. See, that's nice. And you're blessed, Steve, because you can see that. Not everybody gets to see, although maybe we all can. I don't know. So that was a blessing. That was a blessing. I think religion can add a lot of meaning to life. No, what intrigues me is, and I don't have the answer, but what intrigues me is the idea that we separate ourselves from God and that God is there if we don't separate ourselves. And of course, that's sin, and we all sin. Uh, and I think even with the greatest saints, God wasn't always with them. Um, I read a book. I wish I hadn't given it away, but I read a book on Joan of Arc, and it wasn't the typical school book about Joan of Arc, but she went into ecstasy almost. Not, I'm not talking about sexual ecstasy. I'm talking about some kind of connection with God, and that was her experience. But he wasn't always there. It wasn't all the time. Uh, Pope John Paul II, according to Malachi Martin, would pray, and he would get into such an intense prayer that the other people in the room could feel the presence of a spirit, probably God. He was very devoted to Mary, and he believes Mary saved Poland. So I don't know how it works. So you're, as Steve's lucky, he got to see a sign. I don't know if this is quite the place right now, but there's a couple, two, three, four things I can talk about. But what intrigues me is just listening and accepting, and maybe God is there to help, and it's that we block that, and maybe if we don't block it, it's there for us. But it's confusing. I don't think we can ask for a Rolls Royce, and I don't think we can ask for what we want per se. So it all gets confusing. But I love watching people who believe, like my aunt, my father even, who had, when my parents divorced, my dad carried a lot of pain and hurt and anger, but the belief over time. And my friend, well, I haven't talked to him in a while, a long while, but my friend and even client from the Middle East, his belief, his sister's belief in God. It's just amazing to watch the grace and the goodness. And that's not something I have, and I do see it. I recognize it when I see it, and it's a blessing that some people can live in that grace. There's others that pretend to, and I don't think they do. But anyway, that's my reaction. So I don't think it's the religion. I don't think it's the religion per se. But I don't know how we're supposed to. I was driving with a friend today to the funeral, and he made a point. He said, and I never knew I've never known him to be particularly religious, but he said, liberals try to come up with new ways of a new God, I guess, new ways of looking at God. And he said, you know, for thousands of years, a lot of smart people have come up with this representation. So to him, I'll just stick with that. But I think we have to recognize that religion was also very powerful in a time when there weren't the rights that we have now, and it was a way, particularly for men, to live the good life, to gather wealth, to have control over kings. So religion may be wrong in many ways. So if you're tying religion to God, maybe that's not the way to do it. Maybe there's a way to understand God differently than the religion, your religious experiences. I, on the other hand, have experienced, there's a lot of people in, it's the one I know in the Catholic faith, that they're not telling people, they don't try to tell, although the church did that. The church killed people, the church converted people, the church was horrible in history. But it hasn't been my experience that Catholics try to convert or force other people. And that, I like that. I like that. Just whatever you experience it. It's not, we're not here to tell others to be one way or another. Every time, that's all right. I was going to sign off, so I'm glad you brought it up. J wasn't even a letter in the Hebrew Bible. Maybe it was Yahweh. I know you are here. Who knows? We're lied about everything, so I pray I'm on the right path. Yeah, we might be lied to about everything, but what else do we have? I don't know. It gets really confusing. That gets confusing. To me, it's not all a one-way street, which is very arrogant, isn't it? But I had a girlfriend, really, I did. And her grandmother I still treasure her as a friend. She used to say to me, the phone line doesn't only work one way. The phone line doesn't work in one direction. She'd say it all the time. In other words, call me sometime. And I think in some ways, I don't want to be arrogant or anything, but, in some ways, maybe the phone line has to come from God too. And I think, Steve, what you're describing means that we should be tolerant of atheists. We should be tolerant of other religions. We should be tolerant of the hardliners in your own faith or those that lapse. So, for example, it's amazing. Well, it's just amazing how great people are in the Jewish faith and in the Muslim faith, in the Catholic faith that I see, that are just light years ahead of me in their performance and their religion and all that. And Yeah, I just always am, and I always listen. I always let them tell me what they think, because how are you going to learn if you don't listen? So, unfortunately, uh, the journey for the Israelites to the promised land would have been a lot quicker, but because of sin, especially worshiping other gods, that's why their journey was longer, and the journey almost died. Um, there's a pharaoh. I can't remember the pharaoh's name, but and he's been scratched as from as many places in the record off the monuments. But he came to power, and he believed in one God, a sun god. Now, was it the sun or the sun? I don't know, but it was one God. And for a while, um, that was there. And then I think it was his mother. I can't remember the story. It might have been his mother took over. But anyway, the next person in line tried to erase him from it. But it's interesting, the idea of one God. I took a friend into a Catholic. It was so funny. He was Muslim. He wanted to see the inside of the church in London, young man. And it was Good Friday. And it was so strange. All the beauty of the church was covered. Everything was covered in purple. And I said, it's not usually like this. But then later I thought about it, because in Islam, much like some, I think some Christian churches, you're not supposed to have idols, and that's what you're talking about. And so there's many who would call, in history anyway, would call my faith papists. I had a billionaire ask me, good guy, about Mary, and there's Protestants that don't think Catholics should pray to the saints, that's uh, false idols, statues. So it's interesting, and maybe God was protecting this faithful young man from seeing the statues. I don't know. Um, I think it's possible that the reason the journey is so difficult is that we have to learn that we need God, and none of us can make it on our own wits, our own thinking. We do for a while, but then it just seems like there's always a time where we need that help. I don't know. I didn't study this stuff, but maybe that's why they got lost, because they needed to listen to and pray to God. churches aren't perfect. Yeah, well, that's the more important thing. Churches are made up of imperfect people, and that's exactly right. I just feel like you don't have any hope. I pray you find peace. No, no, no. I do have hope. I'm trying to be careful with my words because I don't want to offend anybody. I'm talking to an atheist. There's many faiths out there. And I also don't want to have ego or uh, say things as if I know it, because I don't. But I actually, uh, this year, um, I've been going to the Church of the Immaculate Conception and sitting up in the front. And I, I've been very grateful for it, very grateful for it. And I do have hope. I do have hope. But there's a lot to absorb. There's a lot to think about. There's a lot out there. So maybe that's what you pick up on. Popes and religious leaders are ready for the third temple. Israel has the red heifer for sacrifice, New World Order. Oh, Lordy. Is that what's going on? I just don't believe that's, I just really don't believe that's how God wants it to be, but whatever. Maybe we'll watch. Google Maps would have been nice. One powerful servant to listen to and have an idea of Jesus is Jesus by Billy Graham, 11 minutes. Yeah, okay. Innocent. I'll look it up. I don't know a lot of the Bible. It's hard to read and interpret. No, I don't know that you can. I mean, Steve, how many stories in your lifetime have you heard that were relayed to you exactly the way they were? I just think the gist of the story's enough, maybe. Um, and I'm not sure the Bible's the only source of stories about God. I mean, I happen to believe God has been, if you can doubt it, but if God's there, He's been around for all time, not just for the 2,000 years that it makes me nervous to talk about, because my church says the only way to God is through the Catholic Church. I don't think that's right. We have to do the reaching. God bless us all. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's right. All you have to do is ask. Jesus will come back and take His throne. That's the faith. And the Jewish faith is He hasn't ever come. And then the Muslims are waiting for somebody too. I forget the name right now. So maybe it's all the same person. And if you really want to be an atheist, maybe it's the return of the Anunnaki. But I don't know. I don't know the answer. I don't know the answer. I'm a very simple man, not a writer or a storyteller, but I need Almighty God. Simple man, simple dreams.
Try Domino's new Parmesan stuffed crust pizza for $10.99 each next time you mix and match.
I don't want Domino's pizza.
Whatever you do, do it for less.
Why do I all these commercials?
What if I fall in love with you? Just like normal people do. Well, maybe I'd kill you, or maybe I'd be true. When I go down to get a job sometime.
It's going on too long. I can't play it longer. Well, the service today, they sang this. I don't sing this song. It is well with my soul. And this guy, I forget his name that wrote it, Horatio Gates Spafford. It's on the bottom. But he was in Chicago, I guess, and his family is going to Europe. And he stayed back for business by boat. It's in the 1800s. And I guess the boat hit another boat and sank. And so his wife cabled him from London. I couldn't hear the thing when he said it, but cabled that I'm alone now. What do I do? All of his children were killed, and he had lost his business. He had in Chicago. That's why they were moving, and so he had lost his business, lost his children. And I guess as he took the boat over to see his wife, the boat went over where the new boat went over the boat where the other boat had gone down. And he wrote this song. I don't personally think it's the greatest song I've ever heard, but it says, when sorrows like sea billows roll, apparently these words came to him. Whatever my lot, you have taught, I'm changing it from this tortured English. You have taught me to say, it is well with my soul. So trials should come. Anyway, it's your point. We get distracted in the here and now by the problems and the struggles and all that, which I have. And it distracts us maybe from a lot of things, our soul, but maybe just enjoying life, we get robbed from that. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. That's what Larry King, who was, as you know, was Jewish, he could never understand. And who can, by the way, who can? How could God let that happen? If there is a God, how could God let that happen? I'm, I cautiously tell you that he also killed others in these horrible camps. But I'm so sorry that happened. Um, I can't think of anything right now, but there have been times people have explained suffering to me in a way that it makes sense, but I can't think of it now. But that's just terrible. It's just terrible. All right, I got to finish these and then I'm going to go get something to eat before the kitchen closed. Yeah, he lost his whole family, saved alone. Yep. Yep. That was what she said, saved alone. Yeah, it's a good song, but we're in this place, they had this old scratchy, not scratchy, but it's very weak uh, stereo, and then it didn't work that well. But it's a pretty interesting. It lasted longer than his family, and one of my favorite verses in scripture: "As we are each on our own spiritual journey, ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and the door will be opened to you. Ask not what your country can do for you." No, I like that. I like that. Sometimes that's the thing, just asking. Just asking. Anyway, I'm going to go get something to eat. It's 7:45, and I think the kitchen closes maybe at 9, so I got to change out of this. And sorry we got off talking about religion, and I was holding back. I would talk more openly if we were sitting face to face, but I can't talk about golf, so I talk about politics, war, and religion. Always a winning formula. Anyway, all right. GBUX could be the one. We'll look for Monday morning, and I wish everyone peace. Let me see if I can play this Simple Man.
It seems people can read my mind and make money disappear while they're talking sweet and kind. Well, in some ways I'm like a child. You never.
It's too long. Can't go longer. Nope.
You
Can't go any longer. My sister says I'm the type of personality that is waiting for a huge disaster because everything is too good. I hope that's not the case. Peace. Well, you might be someone that perceives that something is coming. I think we all know that something, I'm not talking about the Bible stuff, I'm talking about in our world right now. That there may be something big to deal with. Anyway, let's call it there. Peace to everybody. Peace to the little children around the world, and have a good weekend. Um, wouldn't it be fun on Monday or Tuesday if GBUX went up a bit? That'd be good. Or the others. Anyway, talk to you later. Catch you on the flip side.